This would be a generational heist if GM Rafael Stone could pull off bringing one of the best shooters in the Western Conference to the Houston Rockets, and this could solve a lot of problems that this roster currently has come playoff time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rockets Digest, where we break down all the latest news, rumors, and updates regarding your H-Town team. I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo. We're trying to get to 1,500 subscribers by the end of the week, and so if you love the Houston Rockets, hit that subscribe button below. Now, as far as today's video, we are talking about a new proposed trade, and this involves the Clippers and the Houston Rockets. As you see right here, this is the proposed trade from this newly reported article. It says the Houston Rockets would receive Norman Powell, a 2025 first-round pick that's number 30 via OKC, and the Los Angeles Clippers would receive Jock Landale, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, and a 2025 first-round pick, which would be the number 10 pick via Phoenix that we acquired this past lottery draft. Very, very interesting trade here. Norman Powell coming to the Houston Rockets in this new mock trade. And quite frankly, I like the idea of adding a guy like Norman Powell. Let's take a look at how he did last season. He's 21.8 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, 2.1 assists. He's got a steal per game, limited turnovers, and I want to take a look at his field goal percentage, both overall and at the three-point line. He's shooting in the 40s, which is highly impressive for the NBA veteran. 48% from the field goal range and essentially 42% from three-point range. He's a 6'3" shooter. He shoots 41% on corner threes. 80% of his threes are assisted, so he's not the most ball-dominant guy. He is a guy that's going to be able to catch and shoot, spread the floor, and hit a lot of those jumpers. Again, to have a three-pointer shooter who is in the 40s is spectacular. And all of that is on a team that has so many offensive assets, right? James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac down low. And so Norm Powell, he's averaging those 21 points per game, has proven to be a scoring threat. And that's exactly what the Rockets need, right? Is to have that three-point shooter there in the roster, in the lineup. And so I want to break down what this article says in terms of Norman Powell joining the Houston Rockets. It says, quote, Powell's style of play seamlessly aligns with Houston's offensive system and personnel requirements. Given that they are practically a half-court team with Şengün playing the role of facilitator, the forward can find himself open on the perimeter more often than not. End quote. And this is absolutely right. A lot of the time, Şengün is the one that facilitates this offense. Not all the time, but in that playoff series, I remember seeing Şengün lead the ball, bring it up to the floor, and essentially just drive in and get a basket whenever he wanted to. And that worked fairly well. It could have worked better if there was that reliable guy in the corner at the top of the key that was ready for a catch and shoot situation. And that's what you'll be getting with Norman Powell. And I want to go back to this quote for a second because it says something very, very interesting. It says they need someone that aligns with Houston's offensive system and personal requirements. Now, what exactly are those personal requirements? Well, this is something that Ime Udoka touched base on in a recent interview after that Game 7 loss to the Golden State Warriors. He said, quote, and so the more consistent you can be across the board and avoid some of the situations that even got it to a Game 7 would be one missing aspect. But other than that, I'd say 90% free throw shooters and 50% three-point shooters. That's what we're missing. That is head coach Ime Udoka. Now, I mean, it's going to be tough to find yourself a guy who can shoot 50% from the three-point line, but someone who shoots 41% is going to be someone that's going to help this team big time. And so he said it himself. It's not the most, subtle thing. It's a very obvious need that they need. They need a shooter. And seeing this trade and looking at what we're giving up and what we would be receiving on top of that, it's a very interesting trade and something that the Houston Rockets, in my opinion, should go after. Why not go out and get a guy like Norman Powell, and at the same time try to keep the continuity you have within this team. And Norman Powell is a fantastic player that can add to this starting lineup eventually. Taking one of those starting spots and sending one to the bench. But overall, this is a guy that can get the job done and is the key ingredient into this recipe of getting past the first round, getting past the second round, and have everyone more chip in terms of what our offensive game looks like. And I want to touch base really quickly on why would the Clippers make this trade? Why give up a guy that has 21 points per game and is doing pretty well on your team? Well, this article says that the Clippers may be best served by focusing on a rebuild effective immediately. As a lot of you know, they lost in their first round matchup against the Denver Nuggets. And what many people thought the Clippers, going into the postseason, were the hottest team in the NBA, winning so many games in a row, winning, only dropping 3 games in their last, 15 games of the season. So they were playing absolutely phenomenal. And so the expectations were very high. You have a guy like Leonard, who's won 2 championships before. You got a guy like James Harden, who's won MVP before. And to have those 2 guys on your team, as well as, Norman Powell and Zubac and all these other guys, you failed to meet the expectations going into the playoffs. And so you take a look at the contracts, you take a look at your roster, and you kind of think to yourself, this wasn't even good enough to get past the first round. What the heck are we doing wrong? And so that's why this article is stressing maybe they're best served to rebuild. And it goes on. It says, while trading Leonard and Harden could bring in a lot more assets, a trade involving Powell helps them structure their rebuild quite efficiently. And that's very, very interesting when it comes to trading a guy like Powell, because what better team needs a shooter than the Houston Rockets? You know that the Houston Rockets have a lot of assets. They desperately need. It's so obvious what they need, and so why wouldn't they take advantage of that need and swap Norman Powell for the trade package that you saw here a second ago? That is Jock Landale, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, and that 10th overall pick in this year's draft. And so you see Tari Eason. Tari Eason, not the most, he's not an all-star by any means, but he's a solid role player in your lineup. You see 12 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 1.5 assists. He did not play much in the playoffs, as much as he did in the regular season. Coach Udoka kind of went more with that double big lineup with Steven Adams and Şengün out there on the court. But, he's 24 years old. He shoots fairly well from the corner 3. He's very, very solid catch and shoot kind of guy. And so as great as he is, you see 34% from the 3-point line. Norman Powell is definitely an upgrade, right? Norman Powell is someone who is a more reliable shooter and probably someone who's going to help this team a little bit more next year, considering if you swapped their places. And it's a very interesting analysis of what these 2 guys could do for the Clippers and for the Houston Rockets. And it also says that in addition to this, the Rockets will also acquire a key first-round pick in addition to Norman Powell, right? While it would be ideal to simply utilize this pick to draft some young talent, Houston may engage in some more trades on draft night, leveraging the pick to gain more relevant assets, end quote. And I like this take here, right? I do see a future where you don't need to grab a lot of young talent right now. You've kind of been doing that the past 4 years. Yes, you've developed them. Yes, you've done a lot to make them who they are today. And there's no doubt in my mind whoever we would pick, we would develop, and so on and so forth. But in the win now mentality that we're currently in, right? Drafting prospects and investing in future guys, albeit, not a bad idea, not a terrible idea. Of course, you always want to be developing talent, but it's not exactly what we need right now, right? You can go out there this season, get yourself an NBA veteran, get someone who's a reliable shooter, get him this season, and then in the 2026 draft, 2027 draft, 2028 draft to get those younger guys to kind of keep this cycle going. You have your guys already. You got Şengün, you got Thompson, you got Jalen Green if you decide to keep him on this team. You have the guys who are going to be in those spots for a while. And so there's no point in drafting guys in the immediate future when they're not going to exactly, play as much as you would have hoped, right? Because there's no one, they're not going to get that playing time. So I can totally see a future where the Houston Rockets make a trade like this, and then that 30th pick, unless there's a talent that they're really, really high on, draft them. But if not, let's acquire some assets for this future draft in case we do need to replace a guy like Jalen Green, in case we need to replace a guy like Şengün. Maybe there's another aspect in our roster that we need to fill. Maybe we can use those draft picks to get another NBA veteran that can easily slide into this roster. And so I really like that point that this article makes, because it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense in terms of what we need to do to win now. We have a 5-year window, 4-year window, and when we want to win an NBA championship, and for GM Rafael Stone to say, hey, we already got our guys. All we need is this one piece. All we need is this one guy that can make a huge difference come playoff time. And that is exactly what we get with a guy like Norman Powell. Again, 21 points per game on a team that was stacked and loaded with offensive firepower. He did an absolutely amazing job. Now, of course, the downside of this, oh man, you'll be giving up Jock Landale, man. Jock Landale is one of the best players in the world, as we all know. Jock Landale, favorite player on the Rockets right now. But you were giving up him, you give a guy like Tari Eason, and of course, you have Cam Whitmore, who has such a tremendous upside. I understand there's a lot of fans out there, Rockets fans, that adore this guy, and they're like, why isn't this guy getting more playing time? In an ideal world, I want this guy to get as much playing time as possible. This guy's an absolute stud. If we decide to keep him, I would love to see him get more minutes next year, see him more involved with the roster. But at the current moment, he is one of these key trading pieces that we would be getting away. Again, if you want to win money, you got to bet money. And so this is what the bet that we're willing to make for a guy like Cam Whitmore. Great player, but as of right now, one of these trading pieces in all these trade talks that we've been talking about all off season. And of course, there's the 10th overall pick, which, we can go back and forth on what we should do with that pick. Should we use that in a Giannis package? Should we use that in a KD package? Should we draft somebody? Whatever it may be. But as many of you have pointed out, shooters. We need shooters. That is one of the core needs that we need this offseason. And a package like this could perfectly justify trading away that 10th pick and getting someone that can help us win now. So as much as we probably would like to see, who would we get for the 10th overall draft pick, I could totally see a future where we do something quite like this. So let me know in the comments what you think about this mock trade. Do you think adding a guy like Norm Powell could do such an amazing thing for this roster and be exactly what we need come playoff time? Let me know in the comments. And again, we're trying to get 1,500 subscribers by the end of the week. We're currently at 1,338. And if you've made it to the end of the video, that tells me you like the Rockets, you like this content. Why don't you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already? I've been Donovan Ricondo. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Rockets Digest.